everybody! Welcome back to the Amber City. Hello, hello! We did so much last time. We got so much infrastructure down inside the city walls itself. We have this super smelter, we have a bamboo farm, we have a moss farm, all of these things. And we also got some of this actually up, and we have like long streets and buildings, so it's lovely. While y'all are away, I added some chimneys just to bring about that smoky vibe. I also added some more details to the streets itself. Nothing too much, nothing too out of hand. But speaking of street views, not as pretty. Not quite as interesting to look at as everything else is now, is it? So we are gonna have to find ways to cover up these eyesores. I personally wouldn't want this in my city. I love having access to it. I love using it, but I do not want it to be that visible to everybody else. So I've actually gathered up some resources right here for us to get started. And I can't wait for y'all to see what we are making. Let's get right into it, shall we? Would you look at that? The mossy carpet. Wow. A beautiful little place to store our moss, our flowering azaleas, our carpets. Our carpets. Wow, so nice and good on the eyes. And would you look at that? The golden carrot. Alright, guys, I can't do it. I can't front with you. I gotta be honest. I've already recorded this before, but I accidentally recorded the wrong screen. So I may have to skip a few things, which I have already gone over. But roughly and real quickly, I'll hit the high beats. This is the golden carrot. I wanted kind of a restaurant slash food vending area that has storage for golden carrots, which is something that I'm starting to stockpile. And I wanted a place to keep that. So I made this lovely building. And I know what you're thinking. I probably could have not told you that and you would have known the difference. But I sadly also when I did a few other things that just didn't get recorded. And so I'm going to walk you through them briefly. Over here, we've extended the exposed copper buildings. That orangey color with the grays extends over here, which covers up the facade for our lovely furnace array. I'm stockpiling copper. Don't tell anybody. And then I also extended it all the way over here. This is not a bridge, but it will eventually host more train tracks that will go through the city itself. I was really wanting to include more industrialization into the city itself, and the way to kind of bring out that mechanical feeling I thought would be to add mechanical components, and that would include train tracks, a train station, a loading and unloading component. And I really wanted a reason to break up this side of the city from this side of the city. I kind of want to keep this side, this oxidized copper, and I wanted to transition to this orange exposed copper. So I think right here, this was an accident. I forgot to switch that out. But I think we're going to keep all of the green oxidized copper on this side and the orange on this side as we expand out this way. But now that we've gotten that out of the way, we have one other thing to go over. And this is the thing I'm the most sad about, because I recorded my entire thought process, what I was thinking as I was making this. This is a swanky uh, little downside bar. Because if you've ever been to a larger city like New York or London, they don't just build up, they also build down. They dig underground and they have these kind of subterranean sectors. And one of the things that I wanted to do with that is kind of have a underground bar, and I really liked this odd shape that it had, and so I named it the slanted roof. And not only is it a slanted roof up there, but it's a slanted roof out there. And here we have the slanted roof, a lovely little dive bar in the central of Amber City, tucked away in the residential district, right next to the commercial district, just beneath the train tracks. And I honestly think it turned out really well. It's really cute. It's got some blendings of magenta and purple terracotta to give that feeling of that it's a bit darker, that there's some lighting things going on. I really love it. I really, really love it. And I'm so sad that I didn't record it. In part because I did actually record a time lapse of it. And so while you won't be able to get my impressions as I'm building it and thinking about it, you'll be able to get my much more meditated thought process about it. Don't mind me just shining our fine terracotta. Ah, look like the storm blew in with strangers, huh? Welcome to the slanted roof. What can I get for you? What's with the long face, fella? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Being new in town truly is just something of a different note, though. I hear your troubles. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes you can bring them to the watering hole, but they gotta choose to drink. You know what I'm saying? Mm. The good stuff. Now what are we talking here? Bush tranquilizer. Boy, howdy, do you know how to party? Well, this one's on the house. Well, you gonna take the lead? Do you have on shoes? Otherwise, I don't know if I can serve you. Oh, well, alright. You can stay here for now, but I think that's gonna be it for my shift. Calm down. Calm down. It's really not taking the tranquilizer well. Honestly, it kind of did the opposite. Oh, goodness. Let's restock from the golden carrot. No, but seriously, I love this. It's such a fun build for me. It was really nothing too fancy, but it was just really cute. And I love the world building that I get to do with it, that I get to integrate it into the city itself. And honestly, if I'm being completely honest, it's my favorite thing I've built so far. Just because it's so silly and stupid. Uh, and I'm really glad that I got to make it. The wordplay, the naming convention, all of it, super good. But now we need to get on to building more of the residential districts. I'd specifically like to develop this area because I didn't initially plan on this. Here, let's get vocal about something. Let's talk through it. Let's get to a nice high vantage point. This central area initially, I didn't plan on having. I didn't have two things planned, but I am actually happy with the decisions I made instead. I initially didn't plan for this train track to come through here, and I didn't plan for this to be residential. I expected buildings to kind of cut it off like that, to box it in, and have it be isolated from everything else, almost like a hidden garden. And I'm still gonna lean into that aesthetic, but instead, what I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna open up the option of it being through the street, that you're going to come into this kind of burrow. I still don't know if this is a burrow or not, but you come into this burrow through the street itself. I think that will add a bit of flair and a bit of life. Specifically, just because I really enjoy the concept of the city interlocking into itself. Interlocking, yeah, interlocking with itself, having these interwoven. That's the word. Interwoven buildings and street structures. I'll try not to mention it too much, but for those of you who've been in London, know that that is kind of what it's like. That there are these long main streets, and then there's another side street, and then that side street comes into itself, and then diverges into itself. Like even some of the most popular streets in London are just kind of offshoots that developed and became more popular. It's really cool. It's really cool, and I kind of want to create one of those areas right here. We're getting it out of the cold for a second. And what I want to do with it specifically, I've even come up with a name for the street itself. That may be something that I do. I may play around with naming the streets, and I don't think I'll do street signs because I think that's a little cheesy and kind of hard to integrate. But I may have, for myself what the names of the streets are. And specifically, I wanted to name this street something like Meadow Green or the the green space, something like that. Because as much as I really am leaning into this kind of over industrialized city and this really complicated city life, I really think it's important that you also have a bit of counterculture or culture that's like explicit to rich people. This concept may not be as clear, but where I feel like you have these street lives where you have these overpopulated cities, you always have richer people trying to create exclusivity and trying to create kind of a feeling that doesn't exist anywhere else within the city. And I think that will do it. I think having a kind of a plant oriented style and houses will be really cool right here. One of the things that I think I want to start with is what would they be made out of? And I think I'm going to touch on my inspiration over here. I really like this concept where it's kind of a mockery of earthy tones and plant life, but not in a way that is kind of accepting. It's still trying to conform to the building itself. So I think that's what we're going to do. I think what we need is we're going to need some mud, we're going to need moss, and I think we're going to need some more oxidized copper. Surprise, surprise. I'm sure everyone's shocked. Something like that. I need a little bit more. Ay. Okay. And then if we mix that with kind of more interesting colors in the top half of the buildings, I think that'll work really well. Because I think whenever I have all of these earth notes, this really pops. But I think once I add a splash of color along this line, these will feel very grounded, and the earth note won't be as prominent when we get to the actual top half of the buildings. Something like that. Okay. And then we're gonna need a bit more mud bricks. For some odd reason, I think it's just the distance with which I'm at from the city down to here, but this block appears to be just outside of the range. This never grows. The rest of these will grow if I'm up there. It's only this one right here, and I think that's hilarious that I made myself so slightly far away that that is the only place that doesn't ever receive a tick. Like, listen to that. And the bloop, 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 as you pick it up. So good. So good. I think I'm gonna try lime terracotta? Lime or green terracotta? Because that's kind of what I played with over here. That's just dark green terracotta. But I think what I want to do is kind of bring it forward more. I think I like the lime more. I think it'll be much more interesting whenever we put it down in the context of the buildings themselves. Actually, you know what we can do? We can alternate. We can go between lime and dark green like this. Kind of create an ebb and flow. It's kind of each and other effect that I think will be really cool. And then I think one more broad stroke and we'll be ready to get to the details. I think we need to decide the shapes of our roofs and how they're going to interconnect. Oh, no. I think that looks lovely. Now let's get to playing with shapes and colors. So when approaching building these buildings in particular, I really wanted to strike a balance of having them still feel like they're a part of the city, but also making them feel different, that they are privileged in some way, that they have access to a way to have different things going on with them. And so specifically, I wanted the buildings to have patterns of the other buildings, which you'll see because all the other buildings are 6 in the base layer and then 4 at the top. And then you have all these windowsills that interconnect to your surrounding buildings. And I wanted that to be the same, but I wanted them to be unique in the blocks that they use, the colors that they get access to. This should be, far and away, one of the brightest areas in the build. Purely just because I used a bunch of different colors that were not going to ever show up anywhere else. However, I did make some very bad choices, and I try my best to correct them. Specifically with these ladders, I thought they would be interesting because they would be a super unique texture that I wouldn't get to really use elsewhere. But it ended up just looking terrible. I even later on tried to add it to other areas thinking, well, maybe I just need to put more of them and I'll like them. No, terrible. Absolutely awful. I don't know what you need to make ladders look good, but it's not that. I get the other consistencies here, like the base supports, and then I start texturing. I wanted to have this two-toneness of kind of grass and then a dirt layer. And I really think I achieved that by integrating the moss into the light and the dark, so that's consistent all the way through. And having the mud as well with the packed mud integrated. Alrighty then. And I think that is where we're going to call it with the Meadow Green Lane right here tucked away underneath the railing. I think that it turned out really well. It grabbed the feelings that I was going for. It has that je ne sais quoi that I really love. There are a bit more things I'd like to do in this area, but I think that we'll have to save those for a later date. Potentially a detailing moment later. But we got the roofs connected to the rest of the buildings. We got the structures of the windows and the houses laid out. I think we've left our mark on how these feel unique and different from everything else. But that being said, there's one other thing that I wanted to go over before we call it quits for the day. Ignore the oxidizing copper. And it is down here. Now, you may be wondering what we're doing in the sewer, and it's to talk about kind of the consequences of our actions. See, we built this just the other day, but it's already come to my attention that the Amber City has been not only producing extraneous amounts of water and waste and resources like that, but while doing all of that, the byproducts that are coming out of the water, they say that not only is the city an amber color, that it's turning the water to an amber color. And as you can see there, we had turning into this kind of orange color. And this was a really cool effect that I wanted to play with. I wanted to give the idea that this fall off is collecting in the bottom of the river here. But not only is it said that the water is tainted, but it says that anything that is grown using the water that's tainted with the amber from the Amber City comes out golden. Isn't that funny, huh? Well, I think that's going to be it for me today. I'm so glad that you can join us as we got to develop more of the city and we really got to get some big strokes down on what the buildings are going to feel like and the city life. That's going to be it for me. I'll see you all next time in the Amber City. Bye bye.